So just about every beginner who walks into our nursery wants to know what trees that are recommended for beginners and which ones they should definitely stay away from. Now, what makes a good tree for a beginner is one that's ultra hardy, meaning it's pretty difficult to kill. One that can stand a wide variety of geographic locations, temperatures, and climates. And also ones that are fast growing so that if you do make a mistake, it's growing quick enough to fix that mistake for you. Now, one of the trees that you really want to work with, and this can depend on where you are boxwoods. They're a very fast-growing, ultra-hardy variety that typically needs to be trimmed 3 times a year, which gives you the idea of how quick they grow. They're also pretty good because, unlike a lot of trees that will lose their leaves for kind of mild changes in the climate, boxwoods have a good tendency of holding on. They can tolerate a lot less water, a lot more water, heavy winds, heavy snow, heavy rain, without really interacting with their leaves at all. As a matter of fact, they'll only start to bronze their leaves in very cold temperatures, and they'll only lose them in snow temperatures, which for most of the country, most of the world, is pretty good. Now, the next variety are olives, which besides being about as ultra hardy as boxwoods, they also have the added benefit of being able to be taken indoors. They're aggressive growers. Most will flower, although there's varieties that won't flower or produce fruit if you don't want them to. And another nice thing about them is they have a tendency of coming back. In the wild, olives often catch on fire. They're a ground-dwelling kind of chaparral-ish tree, which has a lot of leaves underneath them. They'll catch on fire and they come back. There's not a lot of things that you can ask to be that tough. Now, another variety that can go inside are elms. The Chinese elm, the wingbark elm, these are all good varieties for beginners. Most of the reasons I've given for olives and boxwoods are the same for elms. Another benefit about elms, typically speaking, they have a very unique bark structure. It kind of looks like a jigsaw puzzle. Now, the nice thing about that is when they become older, and by older I mean about 5 years old, you start to see this. So you get a mature looking tree fairly young. Now, junipers are also good for beginners, but you have to stay away from certain ones. In California, everyone wants to get a California juniper, which grow out in the desert, and at about 3 feet tall, they can be over 150 years old. Which sounds nice, except their care is very difficult. They don't like to live in most parts of California. They don't like to tolerate a lot of the heat and wind in some areas. And they definitely they definitely don't like to be overly watered like the weather in the north gives us. Now, there's always going to be that one tree in your area that everyone wants, but you may not be ready for. The real downside to California junipers, even the inexpensive ones are usually very expensive. It's also very difficult to collect them because of the area that they come out of. Good junipers to start off with are often referred to as dwarf Japanese junipers, also often known as Japanese junipers. There's also the Shimpaku juniper and the ground-dwelling junipers are all good for beginners. Now, another tree that does very well is the cotoneaster. Its leaves are very small, it fruits, it has a berry which is very attractive, it can be put into any size, and they do very well under most conditions. This is also great for people who want smaller trees because of the size of the leaf directly proportions to the size of the tree that you can have. Meaning, very small leaf, very small tree, it looks attractive. You can't force a grape into a small pot. Now, some trees you want to stay away from are going to be things like redwoods, California junipers, which I mentioned. The reason for these is they are trees that have to grow up in a very select environment. These are ones that are not good for beginners. In California, we have the giant sequoias, the redwoods. Up to 20% of the water these trees absorb has to come from their foliage, which means fog. So anything lower than the fog area of California is going to be very difficult for these trees. If you consider then putting them in a pot, essentially restricting their ability to absorb water, and throw high temperatures on that, you have very unfavorable conditions. They're very similar to the azalea. Depending on where you live, it's usually either too cold or too hot for an azalea. In California, we have a club specifically devoted to azaleas, and it just happens to be located in the area of California perfectly designed for azaleas. Now, in your area, there's going to be a lot of trees that you want to stay away from, a lot of trees that you don't want to be around. A good idea is, if you see the variety of tree in nature where you live, or if you see it a lot in people's front yards where you live, it's usually a good tree to work with. If you find that this tree is very uncommon in your area or hard to find, typically it means that it's going to be very difficult. Now, you might feel that this restricts you to basically trees you're going to find in the gardening section, but that's only at the beginning. Once you develop more skill, once you've got more species under your belt, you'll find that it's a lot easier to work with varieties of species. In the hottest parts of California, we still have people working with redwoods. In the coldest parts of California, we still have people working with tropical trees, bald cypress and such. You just have to understand how to take care of them. I hope this helps, and keep the questions coming. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, like the video, find us on Facebook. You'll find links to everything in the description below. If you have ideas for future videos or have questions, put them in the comments section. And if you feel like it, visit our online store. We've got trees, pots, t-shirts, all kinds of cool stuff. All right, I'll see you next time.